hi for those who I see are already on here. We'll just wait a couple minutes for others to join. Can you hear me okay? You can use the chat to let me know if you can hear me okay. Awesome. Thank you, Charlotte. I'm just going to share my screen so we can get onto the PowerPoint. I'm just going to get that set up. Right, and I'm looking a little darker than I thought I would. I might move into the sun. I thought that that would have a bit of a glare, but I'm going to see if that might help brighten me up a little bit. Is that better or worse? Maybe we'll just wait a couple more minutes to see if there's anyone else who's going to join us. And then we'll get started. So I'm just looking at my time. Okay, it's 12:04. We'll wait one more minute and then we will get started. But thank you for those who have joined us. And I look forward to having this time to share some tips about managing stress and having some discussions together today. And just so that everyone on here knows, I can't see you and you're all muted. If we do want to do some discussion verbally, I can unmute you and you can let me know if you want me to unmute you, if you want to share verbally. But otherwise, we'll also use the chat to, yeah, to just have a discussion. All right, so let's get started. Um, so again, thanks for coming today. Welcome. And today we're going to talk about keeping your stress in check. And my name is Lisa, and I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a social worker, and I work with lots of students and young adults with, on various mental health areas that they want to come and talk and work through. I work with lots of students who, are stressed out, who come to talk about school-related stress, but then also obviously lots of other types of stress that are part of our lives, relationship stress, or family stress, or roommate stress, all sorts of things. And I work out of a clinic in downtown Toronto. And now this is how stress typically can look like in our lives. Um, and then COVID-19 came around, and I think it's left a lot of us maybe feeling like this. And our stress is now looking more like this. And, today I want to help you to find ways to manage stress so that it might feel or look more like this. And so I'm just curious, on a scale of 1 to 5, and if you want to write in the chat box, what would you say your stress level is at, just so I get a sense of the room and who's here today. So just write the number between 1 to 5, where 5 is the most stressed and 1 is, the least stressed. So I'll just give you a few seconds to think about and to type in that number into the chat. I'll just wait for the couple others, hopefully can share with us where they're at today. Okay. So we've got a bit of a range today. I imagine, throughout the past a few weeks, it's probably fluctuated. I'm wondering if, you've had times where it's been at a 5, a 1, a 3. Um, so yeah, thank you for sharing where you're at today. And as you probably notice, it changes also throughout the day. In this time, it can really change like hour by hour, minute by minute. Um, so typically, stress can be good and bad. Um, and if we look at this diagram of arousal and stress. So there's actually like an optimal amount of stress that is useful for us, that actually helps us to be productive and efficient. And so if we think of athletes, for example, like they often perform their best at like that, kind of sweet spot in terms of like cognitive arousal. And, same goes for us. So, I imagine you can think about, as a student, there's, probably that kind of sweet spot where, you do your best work. So it may be like, a couple days before an assignment is due, or maybe it's even for you the night before, where you have just amount of pressure and kind of anxiety and stress that you really get into that zone, you focus, you get all this work out, and you finish that assignment or you study for that exam. On the flip side, when we're, in that kind of low arousal, maybe it's like, oh, the assignment or exam isn't for a few weeks, like I've got time, we might not be very productive. Or, the flip side, when we're so anxious, we're so stressed, it's now the night before, and I'm like, oh my gosh, have so much to do, and sometimes we're like so overwhelmed and so stressed that then we also can't focus. And then, I imagine everyone kind of hopefully has some strategies for how do you manage when things are so overwhelming to bring that anxiety or stress down to that optimal level where you can be productive. So obviously, COVID-19 is causing a lot of stress um, for everyone right now. And, just thinking about even this time of year for students, this is like a time where there's a lot of stress anyway, like around, finals, and maybe it's like, also having to like move out of, your living situation to move back home, or, still figuring out details of your summer job, all sorts of things. And now COVID-19 is like bringing on this other layer of stress. So now there's like all this other stress that's like on top of like the regular day-to-day stress that we often, as humans, we all, there are stress as part of life. So these are some of the ideas that, are things that I've thought about that, um, COVID-19 can be, contributing to in terms of stress. So certainly just the uncertainty of it all, not knowing, how long it's going to go for, when we're going to get to resume our normal lives, how is it going to impact our city, the world, um, the disruption in terms of our typical daily routines or academics, coping with social isolation and not having, the typical peer relationship support that you might have typically. For certain people, layoffs in their job. Maybe now, there's a summer job that were excited and going to be starting in a month or so, and now, you're not sure whether that you're going to be able to work. Of course, worry about friends and family. You might have people in your life who are more vulnerable, or who are, having to go into work. So just, wondering about their risk, having to, not being able to stay at home. And then, of course, there's a lot of grief and loss about things, not necessarily happening or getting canceled. Like, if you were graduating this year, or you had, some fun social event or concert, or something that you were really looking forward to, and, now there's been so many things canceled. So I'm wondering if anyone can think of any other stressors that COVID-19 is bringing around for you specifically, or for people. And again, this is in addition to like the regular stress, day-to-day stress that we may have been experiencing just before and still are. So feel free to write in the chat any other added stress right now related to COVID-19. Yeah. So Charlotte's, yeah, the possibility of losing your summer job. I know absolutely for students, they rely on the summer when you've got time off to, yeah, to make that income to support yourself for the year. Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge. Just give another few seconds if anyone else wants to add any other stress right now that COVID-19 is bringing. And I apologize if anyone's hearing some noise right now. I'm noticing that they may have a leaf blower outside my window. Hopefully that's not too disruptive and will end soon. So stress, can show up differently for everyone, and it can show up in lots of different ways. So there's the emotional feelings related to stress. So that's, might come along with anxiety, depression, cheerfulness, irritability, increased anger, like kind of having that like short temper, or feeling like not as patient, restlessness, absolutely, lack of motivation, feeling overwhelmed. Then there's the physical symptoms, and stress can bring around, headaches, muscle tension. I don't know where you notice that stress in your body. A fatigue, it can come up in the stomach, difficulty with sleeping, grinding teeth, or if you hold a lot of muscle tension in the jaw, sweating, pounding heart, and then through different behaviors. And this might include, isolating ourselves if, we're just feeling like things are too much to handle. We can't handle being around people, withdrawing, which unfortunately we're forced to do right now. And sometimes that can be helpful, or sometimes it can't be. And we'll talk more about that for each of us later. Overeating or undereating, substance use, angry outbursts, avoiding different things, or using other means to like avoid, the stressor, and decreased exercising. And I'm wondering, have you noticed, or feel free to share in the chat where you notice your stress comes out for you. And sometimes we're not consciously aware. And it might feel like from a cognitive level, like, oh, I'm not stressed, I'm dealing with it, but it comes out in these different ways. So I'm wondering if you want to share what, a way that you see it coming out in your emotions, or physically, where do you notice it coming out in your body, or whether you've noticed that some of your behaviors have changed, or how your behaviors kind of indicate, okay, like I'm feeling this extra stress right now. Yeah, so we talked about, I mentioned insomnia, which is difficulty sleeping, but absolutely, it can also, so increase in sleeping would be more of kind of like a perhaps, because we really are feeling like that extra fatigue or tired, and also can be a bit of a behavioral response too, of a bit of an avoidance, like just taking naps to like kind of shut down the brain, or not have to kind of deal with the stressor. You know what? I'm just going to shut my window. I'm going to see if that's going to help with this noise. Not sure if it did or not. Yeah, I notice, and decrease in exercise, absolutely, and that might be because of, feeling kind of extra, kind of fatigued, or stressed, that it kind of leads to like almost that lack of motivation. Um, one thing that actually I noticed for myself early, when I just started kind of working from home and things were so uncertain about COVID-19, I almost at one point thought like maybe I was sick, maybe I did have some sort of flu. And looking back, it's hard to know now whether that was true or not. And I did have something, because I noticed my muscles. I felt so much tension in my entire body. And although on a cognitive level, I didn't feel like I was really stressed, I was kind of like it's okay. And, I'll work from home, and, I'll just get used to this. This is, I can adapt. This, is really, a really awful situation, but, it's okay. I'm going to deal with it. My body was feeling that stress, and I was clearly taking everything in that I was hearing on the news, and the uncertainty about our lives, and the fear, and I was feeling it in my body. And I noticed like I was feeling tension in like my entire body. um, so I'm wondering if anyone notices, where do you hold your stress or your tension in your body? I know for people often, especially if we're like, at a desk or something, often like, a lot of us hold it in like our shoulders, um, or in our backs. Um, Wondering if you notice where you hold that tension or stress in your body. And if you want to share in the chat, or just think about it yourself, kind of maybe even check in with yourself right now. Are you feeling any tension anywhere? And there's a lot of emotions to feel right now. Um, so I love this feelings wheel, because I think it just talks to how nuanced feelings are. And there is something about even just recognizing and labeling our feelings, because, it might seem, like I'm noticing I'm, sad right now, or I'm fearful. Um, and it helps, by looking at this chart, can help us to really understand and kind of tease it out even more. Like, am I feeling sad? But really what I'm feeling is, lonely. Um, or, am I feeling, fragile right now, or isolated, um, or disappointed? So I'm just going to keep this up for a minute. And I don't know if, you can kind of look and see and notice some of the like kind of more basic or primary emotions kind of at the at the center, and then kind of spread out as it goes along, to really understand at a deeper level, what you might be feeling, what these feelings are that might be contributing to stress. um, I don't know, feel free to write in the chat if you looking at this can kind of like be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling, disappointed. I'm feeling, um, you know, anxious. I'm feeling stressed. So this is a moment to just take that breath. Let's just take a second, and then we're going to go into a couple of tools that we can practice doing today together. So if you actually have a piece of paper and pen nearby, if you want to go grab that. You can also do it in like a note section in your phone or something, because I am going to ask you individually to kind of reflect yourself. And this exercise is really, it's to build awareness. And what we do today, you'll be able to take with you, over the next little while, whenever, whether it's during COVID-19 or just during kind of regular day-to-day life stress. And hopefully bring some awareness to, what's helpful for you in managing stress, and what those stressors are. We're gonna get into that. Wondering at this point if anyone has any questions or anything that you were really hoping that we could get to today, just so that I make sure that we can do that today. Just just give you a minute if you want to write in that in the chat. All right, then let's move on. Before we get to the tools, though, just wondering, what helps you to manage stress? What in your life have you found um, helps you when you're stressed? Anything at all, and we'll certainly incorporate this into some of the other tools that we come up with, but anything you've noticed, anything you want to share? Hiking. Yeah. There's a lot of literature on both obviously physical activity in helping with stress as well as nature. And you probably get both of that when you're going hiking. Anything else? Do you want to add anything else to um, the list? Anything that you can do inside? We will get to that in a moment. So why don't we move on, and then we will have some time to think about what we can be doing right now while we're social distancing. So this is the first tool, and I want you to just spend, I'm just going to give you about a minute or so um, to write down, say, 3 to 5 different activities um, that you feel like help to kind of nourish you, to energize or refresh you when you're feeling stressed. And this is called your emotional bank account. Because we do know that there are activities that are nourishing. And right now when we're stressed, there's probably a lot of ones that are pretty exhausting or depleting. So wondering, so if this is a time where you can, get that paper and pen out, or your note section, wherever you want, and just write down 3 to 5 activities first of that you feel like, are nourishing to some degree for you. You don't need to think, just spit them out. I'm going to give you another 30 seconds or so to write those out. All right, so if you can just finish that up. And now I want you to write on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 would be most nourishing. So think about this activity and think about how much nourishment you get out of it. How much does it kind of fill you up, bring you that energy, refresh you. So 10 being the most amount and 0 being the least amount. So for each of the activities that you wrote, just write a number from 1 to 10 beside it. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do this. And now, if anyone wants to share what an activity that they put on and what they rated it in terms of nourishment. Anyone wants just to share one that they put on there? I know, Charlotte, you said hiking, so I'm wondering where you put that on a level of 1 or 0 to 10 for you. How nourishing is that activity for you? A 7. Okay, so that's pretty high up there. Yeah. Um, and I'm wondering if there was any, when you wrote out the number, if there were any numbers that were surprising to you that, when you thought about it and you rated it, and it was either higher or lower maybe than you thought, anything that stood out to you? And also, if you want to be unmuted, and you'd rather just share verbally, I'm also more than happy to unmute you so you can share verbally if you prefer that over the text. So one thing that was interesting for me, and I've noticed, is that lots of us often go to like binging Netflix, and as like a way to kind of relieve stress or take that break. And what I've noticed is when I think about the nourishment I get out of that, it often is like lower than I would think, and it doesn't really give me that kind of big sense of feeling energized and nourished, as much as, for example, like an activity like catching up with like an old friend. And we might do something like that less often, but I find when I have a really good chat or a catch up with someone in my life, for example, I often feel energized after that, and that might actually be more of like an 8 for me. So I'm wondering if you had any sort of I don't know, noticed anything like that, were surprised about what you put down, and I don't know if Netflix was on there, what you rated it. I know that's a common one. Huh. So Charlotte, you noticed that too for watching TV. What did you actually rate it? A 2. Were you surprised by that? When you first originally wrote it down, did you think that that would maybe be like, one of your higher ones, or? Yeah. Yeah, and it may be harder to, find those things that really build us up, and those things that um that we can do. Often I'm wondering, were there other things that um yeah, or maybe it is switching it up, maybe it is doing something like baking or something. I know cooking is something, for example, that I've been doing more now, because I have more time, and I actually find it feels really good to like make a nice meal, and that's something that I wasn't doing often before, but now I'm finding I have more time and I'm doing it and I feel good about it, or baking. So yeah, I think we'll definitely, especially right now, need to be creative and think. I mean, now is a time that we might have a bit more time to try different activities that we don't always have the time to do. So I'm going to move on to the next tool. And this is helping to identify, what you can do when stress comes up. And I'm wondering, so if you could first, so get back to that paper, note section, whatever you're doing it on, and if you can write down, some different stressors in your life right now. So you can do, 3 to 5, however many. I'll give you, about a minute or so to do this. And you can also, right now, give it a rating too. So write down the stressors and write down the rating from 1 to 10, where 10 is like the most stressful. And then we'll come to the third section in just a moment. And I apologize, the leaf blowers have gotten just below my window, so hopefully they will finish off soon. Give you another 10, 15 seconds or so to finish up writing down those stressors, or you can message in the chat when you're done. All right, so I'm gonna move on to the next slide. So hopefully by now you have your stressors, you've got a few of them on there, and you've graded them. Does anyone want to share at this point any of their stressors that they've identified, just to give ideas to others? Maybe it's assignments right now. Maybe it's finding that quiet workplace, wherever you're living, and needing to manage roommates. Maybe it's not being able to do your regular a regular activity that you like to do. And so there's four, whoops, just gonna go back for a moment. So there's 4 different ways that we can think about or manage when some of these stressors come around. So avoid, and so we're doing with the 4 A's. So the first one is avoid. So focus on what you can control and say no to the rest. So I know, for example, for me, like right now, while it is important for me to tune into the news and stay updated, I also know that too much of that can be particularly stressful. So, and for example, maybe I can choose when I do that or not. So I might avoid, watching the news or reading, some articles about what's going on right now, like before bed. So that's something that I know is, helpful for me. Alter. So that's changing what you can about the stressor. So, we may not be able to, work from our, regular place where we do work or study. But where can I work that might be, next best? Accepting the things the way that they are, that obviously that this is not a situation that we ever imagined or wanted to be in, but how do we accept it, and think about it as a potential area for us to grow or to experience different things or learn from it, and how do we adapt to adjust our expectations and reframe thinking in a way, you know, that's maybe more positive. So on this next slide is an example. So for example, you know, if your stressor was being stuck at home, which that probably is for a lot of us, you know, what action can we do? So, you know, how can we you know, work out at home, and how can we increase social connection at home? How can we do this in new or different ways? So rather than being able to like go out and meet up with friends in person, like how can we have you know, a group chat and kind of hang out in the same way? Yeah, how can we, you know, accept that the way we're learning right now via video lectures, or maybe there's assignments have changed, how can we accept that, you know, this is just temporary, and knowing that, you know, people, you know, are being understanding, and you know, things will change and it will hopefully be better for the next school year. So wondering if anyone wants to share, you know, one of their stressors, and you know, maybe share out loud or through the chat what are some actions you can take, or maybe I'll give you you know, a few moments to just jot these down for yourself, for your own examples, and then feel free to share in the chat. Give you another 30 seconds or so to just jot those down. And this will be helpful for you to have, you know, moving forward, to, you know, think about how to manage when these stressors, you know, come up. Feel free to share one in the chat. What's a stressor for you right now? And, you know, how, you know, what action might be useful to help you kind of cope. Does anyone have any questions about this? Or any other ideas that they want to share related to this? Or just give another few seconds to share or ask questions, and then we'll move on. We're just about done. So that really is the completion of my formal presentation. I hope that these tools are useful, or and at least helping, maybe to bring some recognition into, our stress, and where we're holding it, and what is more stressful for us, what's less stressful for us, what's nourishing and kind of rejuvenating or re-energizing, and what's not. um, does anyone want to just share any final comments, questions? How often should we do this? So, Charlotte, do you mean how often, um, like doing this type of exercise, or how often? What do you want me to unmute you? Would it be easier to kind of explain your question, or to do to use the tools and check in with yourself? I mean, I think that this is something that we can be doing kind of all the time. And in terms of, these tools, absolutely, it's nice when you really have the time to like sit down and reflect and write them down. But this is also something that you can kind of just do in your mind, right? Like in the moment. I don't know if anyone's done any sort of mindfulness, but really this is what it's about, is really just the first step is just kind of noticing when you might be having a response that might be stress. And I'm thinking back to that the slide that talked about the different physical like sensations in your body you might be feeling, some of the emotions you might be feeling, and some of the behaviors you might be feeling. So the first step, and you can do this without writing it down, is just noticing, okay, wow, like I just made a kind of snarky remark to my roommate, or I'm feeling really like unmotivated right now. What's this about? Am I feeling sad? Am I, feeling lonely? And then you can go back to that list that you've written about, those different activities that bring you nourishment. So maybe that's, when you're noticing what's going on, and, that you're not feeling great, you're feeling stressed, then use that list of nourishment activities. And maybe that is a time to take a break and call that friend that, when you have like a conversation with her, like that kind of get brought back up, or maybe do some knitting or baking, or whatever that kind of nourishing activity is for you, whether it's taking a bath, a bubble bath, or listening to a good podcast. um, and then absolutely, like in terms of this like tool, like revisit it every couple of days or so if you want. You can always, or you can kind of just keep it as like a live document. And as you kind of discover new things during this time that bring you that nourishment, add it to the list. And then it's kind of like that toolbox. So then when you are having a feeling, you are feeling stressed, you can come back to that list and be like, oh yeah, I love doing puzzles, and that really makes me feel good. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take that break now and give that to myself, because I'm feeling like I need something to kind of build me back up right now. So I don't know if that helps, Charlotte. Yeah, so there's definitely no right or wrong. Again, when it comes to it, this doesn't need to always be like a formal written exercise. It can be just continuing to notice, writing things down when they are helpful, so you remember and can come back to when you are feeling extra stressed. And in that moment, it can be hard to think about what you need. So that's why it's really good to do this list when like you're, in a bit more of a calmer state, so that it can remind you when you might not be able to think about all those things in the moment. Any other questions? We've just got another 5, or we're going to wrap up very shortly, just before 1. But if there's any other questions, we do have a few more minutes. So maybe I'll just move on. I'll just finish a couple more slides of just some things that I wanted to bring to your awareness. And then if you think of any questions, absolutely just put them in the chat. I'm making sure to keep my eye on that. So just to let you know, what is available for you for support right now. We all need, that extra support right now, with all the extra stressors going on in our lives right now. So there's many, different ways that people can get support. I'm not sure if you've heard of Real Campus, which is a student assistance program, which means that, as part of your college or university, you actually have access to a therapist if you wanted to have individual sessions just to talk about stress, to talk about coping, whatever is going on in your life, to gather new ideas or strategies or tools on how to manage stress. Make sure, if you don't or haven't accessed it, you could look it up probably on your university's webpage. There should be a link to Real Campus, and it's really easy to figure out just how to connect and book a session with a therapist. And of course, right now that's all being done virtually. Open up to those people in your life that are understanding and that are really good for a listening ear and can support you. Right. Thank you, Charlotte. That is true. Thank you for reminding us. So Real Campus is free for all students right now, who, even if you've opted out in the past, so you still get, I believe it's up to 6 sessions per academic year. So if you haven't accessed that might, you just check in, of course, when that, just the amount of sessions or when that goes to, but absolutely, Charlotte, thank you for sharing that. So that's a really good resource. But talk to the people in your life, do those things that, make you feel better. Try not to be too hard on yourself during this time, when it's extra difficult. And there actually is a self-care online course that is free that has probably, some similar activities and ideas to, some that I mentioned today, that then you can do at any time if you're looking for some ideas. And even just writing and journaling can be a really good tool right now to kind of get some of that stuff out. So check out this short course, and it is for free. And this is the information for Real Campus, and feel free to reach out if you've got any questions about what type of support you get or how or what that looks like. We've got a team working to support students right now. So that is the end for today. Any final questions or comments? And then that's it for today. All right. If there's no more questions or comments, I just want to say thank you for joining today. I hope you got something useful out of it, and best of luck with getting through this time and getting through finals. There will be probably some more of these webinars or virtual programming for you, so keep a look at that. And if you have any ideas of anything that would be useful or you'd want a webinar on, feel free to share it with your university, and maybe they can arrange something. Yeah, so I'll keep this. I won't end the meeting just yet. I'll keep it on for another minute or so if you want to message me directly if you have any questions. And I just realized the email on there is my colleague's email, Kelsey. And I'm Lisa, so my email is lisa@shiftcollab.com if you want to reach out if you've got any additional questions. All right, we're gonna end the meeting for today. Thanks so much for coming.